I'm not sure if my story will resonate with anyone. Often, when reading similar confessions, we tend to believe that such things happen to others, but never to us. I was no different, until life proved me wrong. What happened to me is, sadly, quite typical of today's world, where loyalty no longer holds the same value and is often met with little more than a cynical smile. I got married at a pretty young age. I was only 19 at the time. My wife and I met in college, during my third year. She was a year younger than me, but the age difference felt just right for that time in our lives. During our first year of marriage, our son was born, and 8 years later, our daughter came into the world. Right after graduating college, I was drafted into the Army. It was tough, but the pay was decent enough that my wife didn't have to work. She could stay home and take care of the kids. Throughout the years, my life took me to different corners of the country and even overseas sometimes. It was a journey filled with both victories and struggles. I earned a few medals, a couple of honors, and even ended up with shrapnel in my back. Remnants of those challenging times. Eventually, at the age of 42, I retired with full benefits, confident that I had fulfilled my duty to the country. But my career didn't end there. Right after the Army, I landed a job in one of the largest steel companies, working in my original field. 5 years later, I became the deputy CEO and part owner of the company. Money was never an issue, for me or for my family. Now I'm 60, and my wife is 59. By the time these events occurred, we had been married for 41 years. Throughout all those years, I never had a reason to doubt my wife. Not once did it ever cross my mind that she might be unfaithful. We had weathered so much together, always standing by each other's side. It seemed like our lives had unfolded exactly as they were meant to. Looking back now, I see how much our lives have changed. Our kids have long since grown up, and both my son and daughter turned into successful, honorable people. They're both in the police force, and not just any officers. My son heads a department, and my daughter holds a high-ranking position. Each of them has their own family, their own responsibilities and joys. We even have grandkids now, who, of course, have become our pride and joy. It seemed like everything in our lives had fallen perfectly into place, a life to be proud of. As for my wife and I, we had a good life. At least that's how I saw it. Throughout all these years, through our long marriage, I never once raised my voice at her, never let myself be harsh or say anything hurtful. I never refused her anything, always trying to make her life as comfortable and joyful as possible. I genuinely enjoyed giving her gifts, surprising her with little things, simply because I loved her deeply and truly. Our relationship was always built on love and trust. Even in the intimate sense, we didn't have any problems. Despite our age, we remained close, both emotionally and physically. When it came to my wife, she somehow managed to preserve her natural beauty, and without resorting to any of the modern tricks or cosmetic procedures. I won't lie, it was a pleasure for me to see her remain so attractive, even as the years went by. Her beauty always caught my eye, and I was proud to be with such a woman. But as it turned out later, her beauty wasn't just for my eyes. So that's how we looked to everyone around us. The perfect couple, living the perfect life, where everything seemed smooth and happy. For the last 15 years, Amber, that's my wife, worked at a big pharmaceutical company. But she wasn't just some employee. She ran the whole marketing department. Her job seemed important, meaningful even. But over the last 5 years, it felt like her life kicked into another gear. Business trips became a regular thing. She'd be gone for weeks, sometimes 2 or even 3 months at a stretch. I wasn't thrilled about her being away so much, but we both knew it came with the job. Amber always had a good reason for why she'd be gone so long. She'd tell me she had to manage the drug supply to pharmacies, especially in major cities across California. And let me tell you, she had a lot to do in San Diego. That's where she said the biggest clients were. I never really questioned it much. I mean, it made sense, right? The pharmaceutical game's intense, and someone had to keep the wheels turning. Even when she was on the road, she didn't forget about us. Amber called nearly every day, telling me and the kids how much she missed us. She made sure to keep that connection strong, even with miles between us. We'd chat about her day or what was going down at home, and those calls, they reassured me. It felt like she still cared, still had us on her mind despite her crazy schedule. But, man, over the last couple of years, something shifted. I noticed our talks were getting shorter, a bit colder. It's like she was pulling away, even though her voice was still sweet as ever. Deep down, a small voice started whispering doubts, but I kept pushing it down. This was Amber, my wife. We'd been through thick and thin, and I didn't want to believe something was off. So, a while back, Our steel company struck a deal with some folks out in San Diego for a big order of welded pipes for an oil pipeline. Since I was the vice president of the company, it was up to me to fly out there and wrap up the final details. Everything went smoothly, and we signed the contract. After that, the CEO of the San Diego company invited us into his office for a little celebration. You know how it goes: drinks, light snacks, the whole corporate thing. At first, everything seemed pretty routine, until I noticed some framed photos on his desk. One of them hit me like a ton of bricks. The CEO was standing arm in arm with a woman, a stunning brunette, and my heart nearly stopped. It was Amber, my wife. I felt the blood drain from my face. I thought I was seeing things, but I wasn't. Somehow, I managed to keep my cool. Swallowing the shock, I casually asked, "So, who's that in the picture?" Like I didn't already know. Proud as hell, the CEO smiled and said, "Oh, that's my woman. Been together for 4 years now." My head was spinning, but I kept up the act. He went on and on about how in love he was and how great things were between them. Then, out of nowhere, he invites me to his place, a fancy mansion in the hills, and says I should meet her. On the drive over, he couldn't stop talking about her. How she was an amazing cook, the best homemaker, the whole 9 yards. Every word he said felt like a punch in the gut. The worst part? He told me she's been away a lot lately, taking care of her sick mother. But he's hopeful that soon, they'll finally get to live together in peace. Listening to his confessions, my heart was pounding so hard it felt like it was going to burst out of my throat. I was seriously scared I wouldn't be able to handle it and might end up choking him out of sheer rage. But part of me knew he wasn't entirely to blame for what was happening. We rolled up to this swanky mansion, a place that screamed wealth with its perfectly manicured lawn and sparkling windows. The owner, cool and confident, welcomed me inside, casually asking why I looked so damn red. I mumbled something about feeling sick, trying to play it off like nothing was wrong. We made our way into the dining room, a massive space decked out with a fancy tablecloth, champagne glasses, and an array of appetizers spread out like something straight out of a movie. The CEO proudly introduced me to his wife, Amber, my own wife. The second I saw her, my breath caught in my chest. Amber froze, her breathing got all shaky, her face turned pale, and she slowly sank to the floor. Her friend barely managed to catch her in time, preventing a fall. At that moment, it hit me hard. If I didn't get out of there right then, I might end up hurting both of them with my fury. Without saying a word, I spun around and bolted out of the mansion. Luckily, a taxi was pulling up nearby, and I managed to flag it down just in time. Grabbing my stuff from the hotel, I rushed to the airport, my heart pounding so loudly it felt like it was trying to escape my chest. I barely came to myself on the plane, my mind racing with one burning question. Why is she doing this to me? I can't even remember how I got home. I wandered around the apartment, pacing from one corner to another, endlessly repeating, "Why?" I couldn't sit still or lie down. By morning, my legs were swollen from all the stress, and my heart wasn't beating normally anymore. It was thundering inside me, sometimes feeling like it was sinking somewhere deep down. Suddenly, an intense pain shot through my chest, and everything went black. Man, I swear, I thought I was having a stroke. It felt like my chest exploded, and I lost control of everything. All I could think was, this is it. It's over. My driver, bless his soul, found me. Dude couldn't reach me for hours and figured something was off. So, he used his key to get into my apartment, and there I was, laid out on the floor, unconscious. He didn't waste a second, called 911 right away. Honestly, I don't remember much after that. It's all a blur, like the world around me just collapsed in one instant. Thank God it wasn't a stroke. The doctors told me my heart was thrown out of rhythm from stress, too much pressure on the system, and bam, it hit like a truck. I ended up in the hospital for, what, 3 weeks? Yeah, 3 long-ass weeks. Just laying there, staring at the ceiling, trapped in my own thoughts. It was torture. Every day felt like an eternity, with all these emotions ripping me apart from the inside out. Amber kept blowing up my phone during that time, calling nonstop. I'd see her name flash on the screen, hear the phone buzz, but man, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't face her voice. Not after everything. It was like each call was a reminder of the betrayal, the gut-wrenching pain she caused. Eventually, I just turned my phone off. I needed to shut everything out. Her, the world, all of it. Being stuck in that hospital room, day after day, it was hell. Doctors told me I needed time to heal, but how do you heal when everything inside you feels shattered? Amber kept trying to reach me, but I wasn't ready. How could I be? Betrayal doesn't just hurt. It slowly tears you apart. It kills the part of you that believed in love, in loyalty, in the sanctity of marriage. Man, I finally turned my phone on when I got back home, and no surprise, it rang almost instantly. It was Amber. She was rambling, trying to explain herself, but it was all straight-up nonsense. She was talking about some ridiculous stuff, begging for forgiveness while somehow low-key blaming me at the same time. I didn't really hear half of it. Her voice was just background noise to me at that point. Then, out of nowhere, she started yelling, saying me and the kids were everything to her, that she only loved me and she was desperate for another chance. I let her talk. I listened in silence, even though my heart was pounding. The whole thing felt so damn fake. Like, really? After 4 years of her living a double life, she thought some sorry words could fix all that? Nah, man. She'd been playing me and the kids for fools this whole time, lying straight to our faces. She'd been so into her oil industry life, and that big shot she'd been messing with on the side. But at the same time, she was still here, living with me like I was some kind of backup plan, some just-in-case guy for when things got rough with her little fling. I listened till she finished, but I didn't say a word. Just hung up the phone. I couldn't take it anymore. For years of lies. And now she wanted me to forgive her? To act like none of it ever happened? Nah. She lied to me. Lied to our kids. It didn't matter what she said now. Her actions spoke way louder. Man, this whole time, I tried to keep the kids in the dark about what really went down. I just couldn't bring myself to tell them. I was ashamed, scared even, but deep down, I knew the day would come when I'd have no choice but to explain it all. Then, about a month after I got out of the hospital, Amber came back. She still had this wild hope that I'd somehow forgive her. I sat there, letting her ramble on for what felt like an eternity, spouting off the same tired excuses. Finally, when I couldn't take her babbling any longer, I called our son and daughter. They got here pretty quick. I figured if Amber was going to try and fix this mess, she needed to own up to it. Tell the kids herself? I wasn't going to say a word. It was her mistake, her truth to share. So she did. The kids just sat there, silent, listening to her twisted version of things. At first, she sounded all jumbled, but eventually, she got to the point. She claimed I didn't see her as a woman anymore, that I stopped giving her attention, and that's why she found love somewhere else. Said she couldn't help it. It was stronger than her. But she swore she loved us, loved me, and begged for forgiveness. My son was the first to speak, and man, his words hit like a punch. Mom, what you did was messed up, to all of us, especially Dad. It's up to him, but if it were me, I couldn't forgive you. My daughter didn't say a thing. She stood up, tears streaming down her face, and just walked out of the room, quietly closing the door behind her. That's when Amber finally got it. All the fight drained out of her. She just slumped, her shoulders dropping, and without looking back at me, she left the apartment. I walked over to the window, watching as my now ex-wife stepped out of the building and got into the waiting taxi. She didn't even look back. And that was it. She drove away, and I stood there, staring out at the street, realizing that it was all over, that chapter of our lives had ended. She went back to her lover in San Diego. 6 months later, she reappeared in our neighborhood. It was as if she had disappeared into the space between worlds. She didn't come back because she wanted to, but because life had played tricks on her again. Her new husband, the one who seemed to be her salvation from all troubles, died in a terrible car accident. This event was the beginning of a whole series of troubles. After the accident, reality hit her hard. Her husband's kids didn't waste a second kicking her out of their fancy mansion. No inheritance, no roof over her head, nothing. Everything she thought was her fresh start, the cozy home, the comfort, the stability, vanished into thin air, just like that. So, she came back to our small town. It felt like she just slipped right back into the place, but things weren't the same anymore. She tried reaching out to me a few times, like she wanted someone to talk to, or maybe some support, but I wasn't having it. I shut her down every single time. After everything that went down, I had no reason to talk to her. And it wasn't just me. Her kids wouldn't pick up her calls either, like they were just done with her, not wanting to deal with the past she dragged around. Now, she's living at her parents' place, her life kind of stuck in neutral, surrounded by old memories and quiet. She's working at a pharmacy now, nothing too special. Almost like she's given up on chasing big dreams. I don't know anything about her love life anymore. Maybe she's not even looking for someone, or maybe she's just hiding it behind closed doors. Either way, her story is over for me. There won't be any sequel.